Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here together with Professor Lucio Gobbi, that today is an assistant professor at University of Trento. He is also one of my favorite co-authors, and we will start to work together about the future of money. Some years ago, I remember more or less 10 years ago, regarding complementary currencies. And after, Lucio will deepen the issue of future of money and particularly cryptocurrencies, also by connecting the problem of monetary policy for cryptocurrency and the future of internationally monetary system. He wrote a very interesting paper published in 2020 together with Luca Fantacci. The paper is titled Stable Coins, Central Bank Digital Currency, and the Hegemony of Dollar, if I remember well. And it was published in Accounting, Economics and Law, an open access journal. And obviously, it is part of your program for this course of financial economics and institutions. Today, Lucio will present the evolution of his research about US dollar hegemony, central bank digital currencies that are a specific evolution of stable coins. And he also analyzed the modernity of international monetary system in light of the international relations, the dangerous international relation that we are living, especially after the decision to introduce sanctions by Atlantic Pact states after the Russia invasion in Ukraine. So I think that Lucio will be happy to have the floor. And again, I am very grateful to Lucio for having accepted my invitation. So thank you very much, Lucio, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Stefano. It's a pleasure to be here, like last year. And the program of the lecture is the one described by Stefano. And I'm taking with me some notes. And in general, I will read the notes and then I comment the slide. Well, Stefano told you that if you have any question, you can do it in the last part of the lecture. But for me, it's not a problem, even if you want to interrupt me. Anyway, we can start. We can say that the international monetary system today is still indisputably dominated by the United States. The dollar is the currency that is by far the most widely used as unit of account, means of exchange, and store of value by both private and public entities throughout the world. However, the ability of the United States to maintain globally monetary hegemony has recently come under scrutiny in the wake of geopolitical and technological upheaval. When I talk about geopolitical, I talk about China and United States tensions and the Ukrainian and Russia conflict. while when I talk about technological upheavals, I'm talking about cryptocurrency, stable coins, as central bank digital currency. And we can say on the geopolitical front, the sanctions against Russia are ambivalent. They can be read as a proof of the enduring ability of the United States to control international payments, but also as an incentive for an increasing number of countries to abandon the dollar as reserve asset and as instrument for cross-border settlement. On the technological front, the proliferation of cryptocurrency, global stablecoins, and central bank digital currency may have equally ambivalent effects, allowing other forms of money to gain international traction, but also offering the dollar itself the opportunity to take advantage of the possibility of circulating in the new digital guises. And in this slide, you can see a table, and sorry, the taxonomy. This table show a sort of a taxonomy about the function that
Sorry, Lucio, we
yes.
cannot see the slide with the table, so I think you have to
really
command it. Okay, thank you.
Now, condividi.
No, it is okay now. Now we are seeing it. Okay.
Yes,
so
but I don't see my slide. I see only you. Yes, now?
Yes.
You can see the slide?
Yes, I can see the slide.
Okay. Even in this way?
Yes, even in this way.
Okay. So in the table, you can see the function of a currency, so store of value, means of exchange, and unit of account. And we will analyze this function for official use and private use. So we can say that the data on the global use of dollar seems to suggest that it is indeed preserving its role on the basis of an international monetary system that still deserves to be called a dollar standard to all intents and purposes. The ability of a national currency to serve as an international currency can be measured following the coin taxonomy, that is the taxonomy that I put in the slide, by the degree to which it serves the basic monetary function of reserve asset, unit of account, and means of payment for both official and private actors. Now, therefore, we will look. I will present you some data about all these functions for the official and private uses. If you look in the slide, you can see the
again. We cannot see this slide, so you have to do again
now?
the command. Yes, now yes.
Okay, now yes, I switch to the presentation mode now.
Yes.
Okay.
I think now it is clear for you
what is happening. If you want, I can switch from PowerPoint to PDF.
No, but you can continue in this way. But it is important that you remember about the command you have to do.
When I change the slide, I need to do this procedure. Okay. In this first slide, you can see we are talking about official use, and therefore official use is the one undertaken by central banks, government, international institution, and so on and so forth. So a reserve currency is a foreign currency that is held by central bank as a part of their foreign exchange reserves. The reserve currency can be used in the international transaction, international investment, and all aspects of the global economy. IMF statistic, the one that you are observing, the IMF statistic on the composition of foreign exchange reserves showed the relative importance of the major currency as reserve asset for central bank throughout the world. What we can say about this graph, and we can say that over the last 2 decades, the dollar hegemony has gradually reduced its shares from 71% in 1999 to 59% in 2022. However, the declining share of US dollar mostly reflects the increase in minor currency, such as the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, and the Chinese renminbi. Instead, the share of the closest rival of the dollar, and therefore the euro, after increasing in the early year of the single currency, so in the early 2000, dropped in the wake of the sovereign crisis, debt crisis, and therefore in the period that goes from 2011 to 2013, and remain since 2013. It remains stable at 20%. Now, move to the following slide. You can see the slide.
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we move to the presentation mode, and sorry. Okay, now we talk about the official use of the dollar as the means of payment, and you can say that US dollar reserves are mostly used by foreign central bank to prop up national currency and to refinance local commercial banks when they need to meet their liabilities denominated in dollar. So it is very important as a means of payment, but also for refinancing the banks, private and central bank of other countries. Furthermore, the role of the US dollar as an instrument for central bank intervention has been greatly enhanced by the willingness of the Fed to provide swap line to other central banks throughout the world. This swap line represents a means of payment provided to central banks in order to allow them to act as a lender of last resort in case of emergencies such as a currency crisis or banking crisis. If you look at the two charts, you can see how Fed swap line provision reached a value of about 586 billion in the April 2008 during the global financial crisis, and again about 550 billions in May 2020 during the COVID crisis. Well, the euro, the second most important currency, cannot be compared to the importance of the dollar in the international monetary system for what concern the means of payment and the swap line. During the COVID crisis, its intervention is almost zero, but when we talk about the financial crisis of 2007, its intervention has been positive, but not relevant. Furthermore, I don't know if you, Stefano, you have touched something about the swap line.
No, indeed, I'm asking for a little explanation about the swap lines functioning, if you can.
Well, we can say that the swap lines are agreement between central banks to exchange their currencies with one another. So this can be a definition: the exchange of liquidity between central bank. Now we move to the other slide. Okay. Another.
Sorry,
No,
Lucio, we are seeing again the slide number 2, but you have to come to. Okay,
yeah.
now
Okay.
now it
Okay.
is okay.
Now start again. Here
Yes,
you can see the anchor
anchor
currency.
currencies. Yes.
Okay. Another measure of a currency importance within the international monetary system is the degree to which it is used as an anchor or reference for the other currency. There are a variety of exchange rate regimes throughout the world, and this regime represent the way in which a currency can be linked to another currency from, for example, from fixed pegs to more or less narrow bands. Well, this chart is retrieved by a paper written by Izeki, Reinhardt, and Rogoff in 2019, and you can see how the countries whose currency are anchored to the dollar have increased over the past few decades and now represent roughly the 70% of the world GDP. On the vertical axis of the chart, you see the percentage of the world GDP, and on the horizontal axis, it's easier to understand how we are talking about time. And the anchor to a currency is related to its use as a unit of account in private, commercial, and financial relationship. So from this slide, you can see how immediately after the Second World War, the immediate substitute of the dollar was the sterling pound. Then pound tend to decline, and the other European countries, the most important European countries like France and Germany, started to increase the importance in the international financial system, in particular after the demise of the Bretton Woods system, and therefore from the 1971 on. I know that Stefano talked about the international, the Bretton Woods system, and the how the post-war international monetary system was shaped.
Obviously, yes. I just want to underline to my class the fact that the use of currency as an anchor seems to me follows also the quotas in the global market in terms of exports. So what
But we
do you
will see,
think about
Stefano.
it?
We will see. We will see. We have a slide dedicated to this issue.
Okay, thank you.
And now, you can see the private use as a store of value. In the slide, you can see banknotes held abroad.
Private use store value, banknotes held abroad.
Okay, so the international use of the dollar is also reflected in the quantity of physical currency circulating worldwide in the form of banknotes. The share of dollar banknotes circulating outside the United States has increased over the past 2 decades from the 36% to about 45% in 2021, corresponding to an increase in absolute term from 2,050 billion to around 950 billion. Although the actual use of banknotes is by definition not traceable, and it may be assumed that this sum is mostly used by private operation as a store of value. By comparison, cumulative global shipment of euros to destination outside the euro area were around 157 billion, and it was declining in 2001. So you can see how dollar tend to increase the importance until the pandemic shock. But by far the dollar is the most the currency that private users tend to hold as a store of value. Now moving on, we'll talk about the payments. No.
Yes, the share of payments in
The
SWIFT.
share of payment transacted by SWIFT. SWIFT is a very important platform, or we can say a firm that allow international payments. It is a payment system. Then we will talk about some technicality of SWIFT, but the importance of this slide deals with the fact that SWIFT is able to provide us the data about international payments. And here we compare the data from October 2020 to October 2022, and you can see how in 2020 the euro was the first currency considering the share of payment, and the US dollar the second one, very close, but in the wake of pandemic the euro was the first currency, and it has lost this some importance during the pandemic, and in particular after the Ukrainian crisis, cause of the possibility of the euro area recession. And here in the slide you can see highlighted the Chinese renminbi, the yuan, and we can say that the decreasing value of the euro as a means of payments, as a means of exchange, and that some of the losses of the euro are gained by the Chinese renminbi. Okay. Now, here we present as a private user of the use performed by private entities, household, firms, banks, and whatever of the dollar as a unit of account. And in particular, this slide shows the share of export invoicing. So Stefano, it could be the slide in which you, if you want, you can add something about the invoicing. Stefano?
Yes, yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay. Well, so the last monetary function consists in the use of a currency as a unit of account for the purposes of denominating international commercial and financial relationship. The share of the dollar in the denomination of trade transaction um, um, largely reflect its use as a means of settlement. And we can say that over the period 1999 to 2019, the dollar accounted for about 96% of trade invoicing in the Americas and about 74 in the Asia Pacific region and the 79% in the rest of the world. Only exception in which the euro is more used respect to the United States dollar is in Europe, where euro is the dominant currency in the share of export
I have a
invoicing.
curiosity. Russia in this data set is in Europe or in the rest of the world?
Is in the rest of the world, but this data refers to 2021, and so these are not data after the invasion.
Ukrainian
Uh,
conflict.
okay, you don't see obviously the next slide. So I have to do the procedure, and
Yes, now
okay,
we see share of securities denominated in US dollar.
okay. Okay. So a dimension in which the dollar is not only maintain its primacy, but indeed augmenting its importance is the denomination of international debt securities. And here the share of dollar has been steadily increasing over the past 17 years. Over the past 17 years. Well, up to 2005, it had fallen to retain only a slight advantage over the share of the euro, but it has recovered, reaching a quota that is now more than 3 times larger than that of its closest competitor. The growing weight of the dollar of international financial markets finds a confirmation in its increasing importance as a global anchor currency. So, looking at the graph, you can see how the 2005 is the year in which the euro and the dollar share of securities denominated in dollar and euro tend to diverge. And now the financial system is the place in which US dollar has no competitor at all. So the share of security denominated in dollar increased, and probably it has increased during 2022. So it was an overview of some data about the importance of the dollar by the function. Now we have a brief presentation about cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency can be viewed, and in particular in the paper of 2020 that Stefano gave you, me and Professor Fantacci of the Bocconi University and University of Milan speculate about the possibility that cryptocurrency can be a substitute or can be an important player in the international monetary system. So after presenting some data on the dollar and other official currency, let's try to take a look at the world of cryptocurrency. The graph shows the market capitalization of all cryptocurrency. So Bitcoins, cryptocurrency of the first generation, and then stable coins, and all the cryptocurrency. And well, if you look at the historical series, you can see that the growth of this market has been very high in recent years. First generation cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular were born with the ambition of disrupting the official monetary system, replacing it with an electronic payment infrastructure that allowed transaction without the need for a trusted third party. So a decentralization, a process of decentralization of finance. Nevertheless, Bitcoin turned out not to be a currency that could be used in everyday transaction, but also a speculative asset. And this was due to its monetary policy. As you probably know, Bitcoin has a predetermined money supply. Therefore, since there is no possibility of adjusting the money supply of economic shock, cryptocurrency is structurally exposed to the risk of high volatility. So without a central bank, the value of Bitcoin cannot be stabilized because the supply is fixed. And we can say that it is not a coincidence that Bitcoin is currently perceived primarily as a financial asset and is widely used for speculative purposes. Now, we try to, as in the paper of 2020, to give some definition and to try to identify stable coins as in a different by the different characteristic of the different stable coins. Stable coins are a reaction to the failure of first generation the cryptocurrency. So the problem in the first generation cryptocurrencies was the high volatility, and therefore Bitcoins cannot be used in the daily transaction, but even as a reserve store, as a reserve currency, because of its high volatility. You don't want to save in Bitcoin because the value can change by even by higher percentage. You can now today have for example, 100,000 euro of saving, but tomorrow they can have lost its value of about 20%. And so it is not rational to save, to put your saving in Bitcoin. We can say that it is a speculative asset. So if you love risk, it is the typical asset of risk lower. But in general, investor has a utility function in which they show risk aversion. Now, when we want to describe, if you want to describe and try to draw a taxonomy, we can say that stablecoin can be divided in fiat tokens, off-chain collateralized stablecoin, on-chain collateralized stablecoin, and algorithmic stablecoin. In the paper, we presented all these kind of cryptocurrencies in extended way. We can say now here that fiat tokens are currency backed by other currency. So if you buy, for example, Binance, which is a stable coin, this currency is backed by, for example, dollars. That means that if you want to buy one unit of Binance, it has to deposit, it has to pay the amount $1. For what concern the off-chain collateralized stable coins, they are backed by a portfolio of assets other than cash, and whose values therefore can fluctuate in terms of the currency adopted as a peg. And even in this case, a central party is needed, and not only for the custody of asset, but also for
Sorry,
the
Lucio,
management.
maybe you have to move to the other slide.
No. I'm here. Sorry, you are not able to follow me. Well, I
Yeah,
can
no, we
simplify.
are able,
I can
but
simplify the explanation, saying that fiat tokens are backed by currency. Off-chain collateralized stablecoin are backed by securities. And when we talk about on-chain collateralized stablecoin, we can say that they are backed by other cryptocurrency. And finally, the algorithmic stablecoin are not backed in generally. They are not well. They are backed by other stable coins, but the cover is not one-to-one, but this kind of asset can have the baking asset that vary, and there is an algorithm that manages the process of stabilization, and we can say that algorithmic stablecoin do not rely on the presence of collateral. Instead, stability is pushed by the use of an algorithm code in the blockchain, which adjusts automatically the supply of token in response to the movement of demand. Now I moved to the following slide, in which you can see the most important stable coins, and all these stable coins are the fiat token, so belong to the first type of stable coins described. The most important is Tether, and you can see how the price of Tether is very close to $1. The peg is 1-to-1, and on the other column of the table there is the volume exchange and the market capitalization. Is this slide the order is by the market capitalization. There is only one exception, because all the stable coins are pegged to the dollar. The last one, Tether Gold, is pegged to the value of gold, and therefore you can see that its value is not about near to $1, but it is pegged to a unit. I don't know if it is an ounce or another measure of gold. But in the 22 of October, it was all the currency as a peg, the correct peg. Now, for what concerns the backing, and looking at the three most important stable coins, you can see how US Tether is backed generally by short maturity asset, cash, secured loans, and other kind of asset. So in this way, even if usually US Tether is considered a fiat tokens, we can also define as an hybrid currency that stay between a fiat token and off-chain collateralized stable coin. When we look at USD coin or Binance, this kind of currency are completely backed by cash deposit or US Treasury bills. So when we talk about stablecoin, we are talking about this kind of financial asset. Now we want to. Okay, I moved. Sorry. We move. Having presented the stablecoin, we move to the last.
We see a white slide, so you have to move. Okay, the other one. Okay, central bank digital currencies.
Well, you are seeing central bank digital currency. Okay. Central bank digital currency is an innovation, monetary innovation that are developing central bank in order to respond to the threat of stable coins. While first generation cryptocurrency was not a challenge by the traditional system, the possibility of create some financial asset which has a stable value can threat the traditional system in two ways. Can threat the role, the function of store of value performed by the traditional currency, and furthermore also the banking business because this kind of securities, this kind of financial means can be compared also to the current account. So we can say that a CBDC is the digital form of central bank money that is widely available to the general public. And I don't move on technicalities, but I want only to say that they can be token based, like for example, it is comparable to cash. If you pay in the token base, you can remain anonymous, or account based, and in this case, this kind of payment as cannot be anonymous, and there has to be a sender and so a payer and the other one that receive your payment. So the identity of the payer has to be clear. While in the token-based central bank digital currency is something that you compare with cash. Furthermore, interest or not interest bearing. Well, if a central bank is interest bearing, it means it is compared with other financial asset. And of course, given that it is an asset issued by the central bank, it can be considered as a safe asset. So in this way, central bank can produce safe asset, and there is a high scarcity of safe asset in the financial system. Then, if you want to dig deeper in the issue, I would provide you the answer why the safe assets are scarce in Europe and in general in the financial system, and or not. In this case, the CBDC is very, very similar to cash, and the function that this kind of CBDC would perform is the one to be to be a substitute or cash or of a current account. The important thing that in this way the relationship is between household, firms, and the central bank. There is no intermediation by the banking system. So we can say that we can develop also a CBDC called a wholesale CBDC, which is managed by banks. But I don't want to enter in detail. I just want to give an intuition of what we are talking about and of the possible designs of a CBDC. Actually, there are some pilot project. For example, well, digital one is already a real contest, and we can say that China has recently introduced the E1 after a long period of experimentation that started in 2014. The development of the E1 aims to pursue three main objectives: to diversify the form of cash provided to the citizens, to support fair competition, efficiency, and safety of retail payment services, and to echo the international initiative and explore the improvement of cross-border payments. In the paper of 2020, you can see that me and Professor Fantazzi says also that a digital one can be a currency that can be a substitute of the dollar in the regional area or in the countries, special African countries, on which the China has a higher level of the share of the trading between these two countries. Furthermore, when we talk about digital euro, the Christine Lagarde and Panetta tells that the international role of the euro could be undermined, especially if other large economies introduce central bank digital currency, as in the case of China, that can be used across border, so for international payment. There are a lot of other projects and pilots when we talk about CBDC, for example. Project and advanced study are currently being undertaken by East Caribbean Central Bank, Sveriges Risk Bank, so Sweden, and the Banco Central of Uruguay, and also other in other countries. And now we look at the sanction after the invasion of the Ukraine by the Russian army, in order to see if this sanction has changed has affected the role of the United States dollar and the role of cryptocurrency, and in particular stable coins, in the international monetary system. When we talk about sanction, here we mean only two kinds of sanction, and so the ones that affected the system of payment, so the SWIFT, and the freezing of central bank resources. We talk about briefly also on some sanction imposed to the banking system, but we are talking not on commercial, not of other kind of sanction, but also, but only, sorry, to the financial sanction. Okay. The first type of sanction affect the SWIFT system. In the paper of 2020, you can you see the slide on SWIFT?
Yes, we are in.
Yes, you will find a story that talks about the SWIFT system, and here now, in order to save time, it's important to say that SWIFT was established.
Just a moment, just to do a sort of summing up. You showed us, first of all, the dollar hegemony, and you stressed the fact that by seeing in each perspective the problem of monetary hegemony, what emerges is a astonished superiority of dollar in the monetary systems. After this, you introduced us the cryptocurrencies innovation and the evolution of cryptocurrencies in stable coins and finally as central bank digital currencies. And so you have now two different lines of reasoning, the dollar hegemony and the future of a new kind of currencies that anyway seems to be more a financial assets than a currency. And I think that we have to introduce a question in order to understand the possibility to connect these two lines of reasoning. And the question is, nowadays, are we facing a situation that may put in discussion the role of dollar as hegemonic international currencies? And the corollary of this question could be, today, the sanctions against Russia are a sort of trigger in order to use an alternative to the SWIFT as a technical coordination, a technical tool for monetary system. And finally, this new possibility, this alternative to the SWIFT, to the technical SWIFT, has something in common with the future of cryptocurrency in order to build something like a network of central bank digital currencies. Okay, are you agree with my reconstruction?
Exactly. We are now want to see if there is a structural break in the international monetary system. We have seen, and finally we will try to draw some conclusion about the trends of the monetary system before and after the Ukrainian and and Russia crisis, and in particular the way in which financial sanctions affect the international monetary system, both looking at the dollar hegemony, but also looking at the importance of cryptocurrency. And we can say, and in the paper, we developed the story of SWIFT and all the times in which the SWIFT system has been weaponized, so used by the United States as a weapon to hamper other nations. SWIFT was briefly, SWIFT was SWIFT is a private company that manages the payment and the financial transaction messages. And until the 1990s, SWIFT acted as a private company. Then, after the terrorist attack of 2001, the US Treasury launched the Terrorist Finance Tracking program to track the financing network of Islamic fundamentalists. So it was the first time in the history that the in which the United States violates the privacy of all individuals that perform payments by means of SWIFT. But the United States government says it is for national security, and the use of payment system for military and strategic purposes occurred again in 2012 when, under American pressure, SWIFT disconnected Iran's banking system until the 2015. Here, the problem was the developing of nuclear program from the Iranian government. Then, in 2015, they found an agreement, and the banks of the Iranian banks were reattached to the system. But in 2000, and I told you, and I'm telling you this kind of facts in order to let you see the importance and the pressure that the United States government can do in the international monetary system. In 2018, President Trump broke the agreement with Iran and reactivated the sanction. The European Union start to complain because they said, well, it is not fair. Iran has not deviated by the agreement we stipulated with Iran, but US started to reactivate its sanction again. Well, and therefore the European Union built its own payment system, but this system has been operational since 2019, but there is no firm, zero firms that has done any kind of payment is the Instack payment system. Why? Because they fear to be disconnected by SWIFT and by American government. In this context, and in particular, when the turmoil in Ukraine start, but we are talking about 2014 tension, Russian government has started to develop its own system, and in particular started to use the Chinese cross-border international payment system called CHIPS. So it is a long story, the one of the tension between the United States and the European Union and Russia government in Ukraine. And I just to remind you that since 2012 to the February of 2022, there has been 50,000 deaths and more than 1 million of refugees. So it is something that has a long story and also a story of financial sanction. But nowadays, a lot of banks of Russia has put out of the SWIFT system. So among the first measure was to disconnect some banking intermediaries from SWIFT system in a way that damaged their ability to operate globally. And another important thing about banks is that they found their asset frozen, and the freezing of the asset of the majority of Russian banks held abroad. And so the asset of the Russian banking system has been frozen whenever these assets were held abroad. And so this hampers the possibility to use asset as a means of financing or as a means to collect profits by the Russian bank. And the Russian response, even in the 2014, but also now, we can say that some Russian banks were blacklisted in 2014 by by the United States, and therefore Visa and Mastercard immediately suspended the services to this bank. In response, the Russian central bank developed its own payment system for credit card. This system is called MIR, and it intermediates in the 2021 about the 25% of all domestic credit card transactions. And in order to reduce its financial system dependence on the SWIFT, in 2014, the Russian government developed a similar system called SPFS. And I guess that this kind of system has performed a lot of payments from the February 2022 on, but we don't have any information, any data about this dynamic. Now, a very, I think, the most important things about the financial sanction, the one that deals with the freezing of central bank reserves. Okay, can you see
we are seeing Russian central bank reserves by currency as percentage of total and by geography as percentage
one of the sanction is the freezing of the central bank reserves held in asset denominated in dollar and in euro. If you look at the bar that deals with asset by reserve by currency, you can see that the Western Bloc has blocked, as frozen about 50% of the asset of the reserve of the Russian central bank. By in this way, they undermined the concept of reserve. United States did this kind of procedure for the Venezuelan bank, for Iranian bank.
Sorry, but before saying this, could you explain us the difference of the two columns? What does it mean by geography?
By geography, where the reserve was placed.
Could you repeat?
In which country, in which banking system these reserve are placed in the center?
Okay,
in which bank?
They are Russian central bank reserves, but not the entire central bank reserves are located in the same place.
Exactly. Okay.
Thank you. You can. Continue.
No, the important things that well, some central bank asset has been frozen in the case of Iran or Venezuela, but it's even in the Cold War did not happen something that as in this case. And the concept of reserve is the one, or better, we can say that the central bank save and store reserves in order to use reserve during a crisis. During crisis, and therefore you save and you stock currency in order to use it when you need it. But if your reserve is not disposable when you need, the concept of reserve has changed now, and all the central banks around the world started to diversify their reserves, especially, for example, of the Bank of China and a lot of countries that can have some trouble relationship with the United States or the European Union has started to diversify their reserves.
Can we
Why?
stop just a minute about the political consequences of this kind of unilateral redefinition of the
Yeah.
role of reservists? Because I would like to ask you, but to the class too, the following question: is this considerable as a long run equilibrium, first of all? And secondly, could we consider this as an incentive to bipolarize the monetary systems? I mean, if I am excluding a country like Russia from the official international monetary system, I'm also introducing an incentive to Russia to develop another kind of reserves policy. For example, by integrating the monetary system, the Russian monetary system, with the Chinese monetary system.
For sure, and it is that is happening now. The only asset disposable to the Russian central bank are the one denominated in yuan, which represents the 13.1%, and the one in gold or in the share called others. And
what do you think about my first question? Is it a sort of new international equilibrium, or is it a disequilibrium of the international monetary system?
well, there can be a new stabilization, but for sure a new stabilization by blocks, the Western block and the other block. And you tend, I think that from now on, you will tend to collect reserves denominated in the currency of countries that you consider friends. And for sure, Russia will not store any kind of asset denominated in euro or in dollar from now on, but also Chinese government, I'm sure, that is starting to diversify its asset. And I don't know if you tell students about the imbalances for the United States and the commercial imbalances, the deficit, the twin deficit of the United States, and the fact that for 20 years, Chinese government and Chinese central bank has collected a lot of dollar cause of these imbalances in the international trade. But I don't know, Stefano.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I think you can move to the conclusion of your intervention, and we may leave the floor to the students' questions.
Okay, I try to be quick now. But if you want to stop now, no, not it's not problem. Now, the main implication that we can have is the fact that all over the world there is a reduced reliance on USD dollar as reserve asset, and in the data presented in the first slide, we have seen this decline, and the fact that there is a constant development of alternative payment system like chips, the Chinese chips, the European ISTEX, but it doesn't work, the SPFS, and the fact that a lot of currency are other than United States dollar has started to be used in bilateral transaction. For example, if you consider the India and Russian bilateral trade, the ruble-rupee transaction increased from 6% of 2014 to 30% even before the crisis of 2002. And we also have seen that the redenomination of we hadn't seen in our slide, but there is a process of redenomination of commodity prices in other currency. If you think about the proposal of Saudi Arabia to redenominated the oil prices also in one. It's something which is very important. I have also prepared some slide on the story of the oil crisis of 1973, but I think that we don't have time. And we can say that the last point is that central bank is started to develop its own digital currency in order to face the CBDC, the stablecoin competition, and so if you want to stop, because I have some.
No. You go. I think you have 4 slides more, so you can
okay.
go deeper about the strategical function of central bank digital currencies in this international situation.
Well, it is not so easy to have data about CBDC importance because only Chinese renminbi has started to circulate as a CBDC in real context. On the other central bank has not developed for what concern important countries this kind of means of payment in real context. We have some important insights about the stable coins as a possible substitute of the dollar, because after the financial the invasion of Ukraine in this spring, they had a lot of troubles, and therefore we can say that stable coins cannot be a credible substitute of the dollar. Now I try to move to an important slide. You can see the slide in which talk about financial stability issues.
Yes.
Yes. In the first time that the global market the global financial market face something that can be called turmoil, or not crisis, but just turmoil. The stable coin, the most important stable coin, which is Tether, has broken its peg. And as you can see in the right-hand chart, and another important stable coin that was Terra USD almost failed. So investor in the case of turmoils moved to the currency to offer a stable government respect to this kind of asset. And so I can think, well, according to me, I can say that stablecoin cannot be a substitute because whenever investor increase the fears respect to the reliance of some security or some financial assets, the stable coins has lost its peg, especially the stable coins that are not backed by currency, but like Tether, were also backed by securities. Short-term security, commercial paper, but they are also backed by securities and not only by cash. Now, summarizing, we can say, and then we can stop. We can say that for what concern the state of play in this presentation, we have seen that the trends are the following. And in the international financial system, there is a declining use of dollar as reserve asset, a declining use of dollar as a means of payment, but an increasing use of dollar as a unit of account to denominate financial asset. The shift from commercial to financial purposes seem to be the most important things. Well, we can say also that during the Ukrainian crisis, the dollar, well, we can say that capital tend to be allocated by investor in the US dollar denominated asset. So the exchange rate of the USD respect to the almost all the advanced economies has increased. So we observe the revaluation of the exchange rate of US dollar. And the implication can be the US dollar maintains its global hegemony primarily thanks to the unrivaled liquidity of US financial market, which provide the world with ample supply of safe assets in time of uncertainty. And the recent appreciation of the dollar reflects the massive capital inflows in the wake of geopolitical and economic uncertainty. And finally, we observe a sustained capital inflow lead to the deterioration of US international investment position. So for now, we can stop here. Maybe we can use the other slide to answer to student questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I leave the floor to Riccardo for some questions.
Okay. Good morning. My question is which role the current crypto crisis will play with the development of the stable coins and their acceptance in the market?
So are you considering to the recent crisis?
Yes, the recent crisis, yes.
Okay, about the stable coin, the big stable coin in United States. Okay, and if you can read also the other questions.
No,
this is the question. Okay, have you any questions?
No, just this.
Okay, so thank you very much, Riccardo. Adeni, have you any questions?
Yes, for me, I also want to ask some few questions, and it's centered around the political aspect and regulatory aspect of the stable coins, because like Professor Lucio has clearly stated that some of the stable coins has currency equivalent to 1-to-1. And it means that the values are tied to a local currency. However, for major cryptocurrencies, there are less regulatory involvement because it's a decentralized system, and it creates more, it brings issue of stability of the currency value. So how do you see in the future the cryptocurrency acceptance in line with regulatory policies to keep the stability of the cryptocurrencies? Because for now, a lot of the problem of instability is tied to the decentralization. So the vulnerability of that asset is tied to decentralization.
Okay. Any
Did
other question?
Did you get my questions?
You have another question?
Okay, so then the second question, it's about the geopolitical reasons for transactions. Do you think with this Ukrainian and Russian political tension, it will also affect, it will also increase the ruble development into more financial stability?
No, well, I had a problem of sorry, poor connection. The last question I didn't catch the.
Could you repeat your second
you were
question,
talking. Okay, you were talking about the Ukrainian crisis, but then I didn't understand. Sorry.
Okay, I said yes, on the Ukrainian crisis, the Ukrainian and Russian crisis. Despite the sanctions, do you think the ruble would gain more market penetration or market value because of their integration with China, or do you think it will still affect more of their monetary policies?
Okay. Any other student?
No, I think you can answer, and after you may directly conclude.
Okay. So, for what concerns the last question about the U.S. And China relationship, well, it's difficult to forecast the futures, and when I do, usually I do it wrongly. So if I give you an answer, you have to do the opposite. And when well, probably there are some information that can do us a good prediction. The last weeks, President Biden asked to Putin to have a meeting, but then the meeting didn't happen. But I think that given the problem in the international trade and international system, especially in Europe, which are allied to the United States, I think that even it's a good thing for all to find an appeasement. And I think that in this way, even the commercial relationship between the United States and China could decrease the intensity, but not in a drastic way. So we won't have a sudden stop in this scenario. But if the war increases, there can be another path. For example, this process of decoupling between the United States economy and the Chinese economy can be of a higher scale. For what concern cryptocurrency, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot the point. And
the question. Yeah, sorry. Let me just repeat the question.
No,
it's
my problem because I had the flu, so
it's fine. So the question is, we know the consumption of cryptocurrency was based on decentralization, not to depend on the central system for regulation. So it's going to be like a seamless payment. However, in the recent times, we've seen that the instability of the coin or the volatility of the coin or the cryptocurrency is still much tied to not being regulated. So for going forward in the future, do you think regulation can help stabilize cryptocurrency?
Yes, Yes, for sure. Cryptocurrency is, we need a regulation of cryptocurrency. Yesterday, the president of the Fed has talked about this problem. A monetary system cannot be a far west, otherwise we will see scandals. But this kind of fraud and scandal will put investor to the traditional asset, because people fear this kind of dynamic, correctly, because we have seen a lot of cases in which investor has lost their value, and so it is not easy, because we have national regulators and international crypto markets, and so it is not easy to find common regulation. But as in traditional financial instrument, there has been a lot of international institutions like Basel committee or other international committee that has write down a common regulation from all the financial system of the advanced economies. I think that the improvement in regulation can help the development of this kind of asset. But there is a, well, I think a problem. For example, the stable coins that are able to face the turmoils were only the one backed by currency of the United States or of other advanced economy. So this shows that cryptocurrency has to be backed by some states, by some governments. They cannot be an alternative system, but it can produce an important asset for the financial system. For example, they can be a safe asset if there will be some improvement in the regulation that help to face the problem of the pegging of the stable coins. And I think that the improvement in the regulation is necessary, and there is a lot of literature about this issue. And if you want, I can send you a lot of paper about this item.
Thank you, sir, Professor.
Now we come back to the first question that
Yes.
I forgot because
Okay.
I got that. Sorry.
Yes, Lucio, it was about the recent crisis in the stable coins market. As you know, yesterday, I think a big character, a big businessman in United States was put in jail for the failure of one of the most relevant stable coin. And I think that the question was about the consequences of this, also about the international monetary system of tomorrow debate. I would also add another linked question to this. What do you think about the possibility that also this kind of bad news about the stable coins could be linked to the fear of a new infrastructure for the Eastern world based on stable coins, and you know, can we interpret also this diffusion of bad news about stable coins as another war between Western and Eastern countries?
Okay, the first part of my answer is similar to the one I provided to Adeni, in the sense that we need to increase and improve our regulation in order to avoid this kind of fraud and phenomena. And of course, this factor has a short-term impact in the market, and we have seen that after the scandals, the trading volume is decreasing, and also the value of a lot of cryptocurrencies has decreased. But in the long term, I think that the point is the one of regulation, because for example, some monetary funds has started to trade cryptocurrency, and therefore it is important. To see how the regulation developed, how regulators tend to ask, for example, banks to store to save capital, to accumulate capital in order to cover possible losses of this kind of instrument, and therefore we are at the first steps of a new world. I think that this instrument will be fundamental in the future, but actually we are in a sort of far west, and so we need time to say that what will be the dynamic of this instrument. For sure, if the thesis or the research question of this lecture was whether this kind of instrument can challenge the dollar position, my answer is no, not at all. Cryptocurrency now, and in particular stable coins, is not an alternative with respect to the dollar. In the future, I cannot say more that if the history of developed countries have developed institutions like state, and the state is or some kind of international institution, is because in crisis period this institution provide safety to citizens, and now we cannot say anything of this kind. We cannot see anything of this type that can decrease the risk aversion of pension funds, of large type of institutional investor, of households that can help the diffusion of these instruments. So for me, it's this answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
For what concern the Western Bloc and the other bloc, well, I'm not a sure forecast, obviously, but I'm sure that we will see a polarization of the bloc, and some countries that is in the middle between the two blocks, like for example Turkey, like for example India, and in this way some decentralized asset could be a bridge between these two blocks. But actually the regulation about this kind of asset is too poor to assign a so important role in the international system to this to cryptocurrency.
Okay, thank you, Lucio. Do you want to leave us with a sort of final suggestion about future lines of research about these very relevant issues?
Well, usually the old professor think that we are talking about nothing when we talk about cryptocurrency. but I think that is a very, very relevant issue, and therefore I suggest you to continue to study this item, and probably the better thing could be to write a thesis on these issues. For example, I have three students that is working off stable coins, and for sure they are more informed, and they have a better look at the new world respect to the old professor, and not old like Stefano, but not physically old, by old in their mentality and in the way in which they look at the innovation. I think this is one of the most important things if you want to look at the international financial system. So, and there is nothing which is sure, there is nothing fixed point. We don't know almost nothing about, almost nothing about this new world. So probably you will be you will fit better than me in analyzing this kind of phenomenon.
Okay, thank you very much to you and to the class. And I hope I will have you again for monitoring the future of monetary system. Very good, Lucio. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Hi.